The standard story of rock star addiction is pure hedonism. We imagine backstage parties, endless excess, and a reckless pursuit of pleasure spiraling out of control. Looking closer at the artists who survived the cycle reveals a different motivation. In these high-pressure environments, substance use functioned as a tool for survival, a desperate attempt to build a wall of protection around a fragile internal state. Consider the psychological toll of this image. A live performance requires the artist to remain emotionally porous, projecting their vulnerable self to tens of thousands. That level of exposure is a massive expenditure of self. The true psychological danger arrives the moment the music stops, when the artist is suddenly dropped into a vacuum of total silence. This is the persona gap. It describes the extreme tension between the godlike figure on the stage and the isolated, exhausted human being sitting in the dressing room an hour later. Moving directly from the roar of a stadium into the profound, static isolation of an empty hotel room creates a jarring emotional whiplash. Artists use substances to numb that transition. The drugs act as a shock absorber, locking the individuals safely inside the analytical machinery of their own heads, where they can manage their image without having to feel the weight of the room. This early stage of addiction is a form of self-imposed quarantine. It protects the artist by severing the connection to their own heart, keeping the vulnerable self hidden behind a wall of chemical fog. What begins as a temporary defense mechanism eventually hardens into a permanent state of being. The artist becomes a prisoner of their own performance, stuck in a loop of constant paranoia. We can map this as failing internal architecture. The channel connecting the mind to the heart becomes clogged with fear and trauma, stopping emotion. Artists eventually reach a realization: the head is not the home. The mind cannot complete the circuit while isolated. Recovering from this state requires the mechanical clearing of that systemic blockage, a process that goes beyond simple willpower. Popular culture often frames healing as a form of transcendence, an escape to a higher state. Actual recovery functions as a descent. It is the slow, deliberate work of climbing down from the fortified intellect, returning to the ground. Clearing the channel requires a painful, honest vulnerability. It means leaving the safety of performance and stepping back into the warmer, more dimensionally alive territory of the heart. For the artist, healing is found in the radical act of becoming ordinary, exchanging the pedestal of fame for the solid ground of a connected life. This descent is happening right now in recovery rooms across 6 continents. Musicians who once commanded global stages are now doing the quiet, unglamorous work of reconnection in basements and church halls. Steven Tyler's Janie's Fund supports survivors of trauma, reflecting a recognition that the internal channel is often blocked by the wound itself. By tending to that source trauma, the work addresses the primary obstruction that makes sustained recovery possible. Alice Cooper continues this practice internationally, weaving the language of his faith into the vocabulary of recovery to keep his emotional channel clear and open. Attempting to remove a substance while leaving the underlying wound unaddressed is a temporary fix. Permanent recovery depends on tending to the source. The recovered artist faces a persistent reality. The channel between the head and the heart can snap shut again at any moment. Eric Clapton maintains his sobriety by attending 12-step meetings, even while on massive world tours. He enters these rooms as an anonymous member, a person who understands that community is the daily practice required to keep his connection to himself alive. Community is not a pause before real life resumes. This shared vulnerability is the very thing that keeps the channel open, ensuring the artist remains connected to the heart of their own story.